And welcome. You are locked on to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of Locked On Mavericks podcast, and here I am at WFAA on set here in Dallas, Texas, where we just wrapped up our 6 hour
6 hours.
NBA,
I feel it.
NBA Draft live show. Rafael Barlowe with me, Draft Junkies, and the Locked On NBA Draft podcast joining me right now. Rafael, what you got for me?
It's been 6 hours. 6 hours of talking NBA draft. It was honestly, it was a dream come true. It was something I've always wanted to do, and I'm still kind of, it hasn't really hit me that I just did a live draft show in a studio, and it was fun. I'm hoping to do it again. Actually, if we're doing it again tomorrow, I'd be open to it.
I was gonna say, if this is the NFL draft, we come back for day 2, day 3, we'd be all over it. Chad Ford was on it with us. That was an incredible experience. He's sitting out. I can see him. He's sitting out. He's sitting out in the hallway, finishing the last mock draft, big board, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like for me, it's like I just did a live show with Chad Ford. It's definitely an honor and a pleasure. So
thanks to everybody that listened, that streamed, that watched it. If you haven't, go and subscribe to the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. There's great stuff coming up there, more clips from the show and all that. You can go watch the entire show. Go check back to see where your team picked. A bunch of our Locked On NBA hosts were on it. It was absolutely incredible. Today's episode, by the way, brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com and tell them that Locked On sent you. Locked On. Everywhere. Everything's locked on in here. There's a giant Locked On over there. There's Locked On in lights behind us.
Locked On my chest.
Covered in Built Bars everywhere. There's Built Bars back there. Let's get into this draft. There was some interesting moves that were made. There were some big surprises. We're going to power rank our biggest surprises of the draft in the third segment. But we got to start with the biggest news of the night that just seemed to get buried early on, and that's that Russell Westbrook is headed to the Los Angeles Lakers. Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and the 22nd pick in this draft went to the Wizards, and coming back is Russell Westbrook, a 2024 second-round pick, and a 2028 second-round pick that doesn't exist. 2028, that's just too far out for me to, like...
It's a middle schooler.
even think
some kid that was on the playground today.
Some 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid is hanging out there. He's going to play for the Lakers.
Right.
Or thinks he will. And LeBron will probably still be there. But
yeah.
Initial reaction of Russell Westbrook going to the Lakers. We talked about it a little bit on the stream, but Russell Westbrook adds that, I guess he's a secondary creator. It's wild to think of Westbrook as a secondary creator now, but with LeBron there, he kind of has to be. So Russell Westbrook brings that to them, but it really hurts their shooting. There's a lot of rumors before the draft they're going to get Buddy Hield or somebody like that. Even our Locked On Lakers host, Brian Kamenetsky, came on, the live stream and was kind of like upset, like distraught almost that they got Westbrook instead of Buddy Hield because it would have been such a better fit. But initial thoughts about Westbrook?
I have no idea how it's going to work. I was just talking to somebody off camera during the bubble. The Lakers didn't even guard Westbrook. They were sitting there as far back as possible. And you would think
when he was the Rockets,
when they scouted him, I don't understand why they would say, "Oh, adding him is going to help us win." I know it's Westbrook, but it's the Lakers. Even if me and you were the starting point guard, they were going to sell tickets. So I could see like some teams may say, "Hey, we're going to hopefully this works and it sticks because it gives us a name and for marketing purposes." But to me, it just doesn't make sense. Their payroll, those three guys, Bron, AD, and Russ, make more than...
I was going to say, that's $120 million almost with all those guys.
We might
30, 40?
We might need to suit up.
They would sell tickets that if I was playing as least athletic NBA player ever to suit up for a team.
Yeah, they're going to have so many minimum guys on the roster.
Slowest, shortest player to ever play.
They may need to sign some guys out the Drew League or something to fill out the roster.
Man, yeah. So the Los Angeles Lakers, this is an interesting thing now. Some people are going to take this and say, well, now they got their third star. They're going to be back in it. And I think the Lakers will still be good. This doesn't take them from where they were last year and even the year before that, winning the title, and make them demonstrably worse. But all of a sudden you add Russell Westbrook, who is prone to breakdown at the end of the season. He just had that quad injury that really took him out of the season last year until he kind of ramped it up towards the end and then looked bad in the playoffs again. Anthony Davis, who's prone to injury all the time. LeBron James just missed the most amount of time he's missed. To me, it's surprising that all those three guys, it would be surprising if all three of those guys got through the season without some kind of missed time. And they're going to be resting. They're going to be sitting out games. And so it's an interesting pairing. But if that's the only guy they could get, that's a little surprising.
I mean, I think they could have got healed.
Seems like it. It seems like that deal was on the table. How many tweets did we see from Woj and Shams about they're on the verge? They're in talks.
Coming at the same time, and then it was like all of a sudden, then you just saw it was Westbrook. So it's like, is it a 3-way deal?
That happened a few times tonight where Woj and Shams would tweet like a trade was happening, and it would be different sides of it. Like one would have one thing and one would have the other. It was just as if they were trying to figure out which one they could get. So the front offices would just send it off to.
Or I just think it was they were in a rush to be first.
Yeah,
and not right.
Yeah, they want the tally, the chart at the end of the night to be like Woj had more than Shams, right? They're looking for that. What was it? Awful announcing or something that.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't know if they're friends now, but they were teammates at the Vertical.
Woj made Shams, didn't he? And brought him up in the business. So yeah, That's always an interesting dynamic on draft night. But that's the Russell Westbrook trade for the Lakers side of it. It's going to be interesting to watch that team. They're definitely a must watch, right? To see.
I'm not a Lakers fan. I'm not watching them.
In the last, tell me the last 5 minutes, you get that League Pass alert that the Lakers are, it's a clutch game, last 5 minutes. You got LeBron and Westbrook trying to figure out who's going to take the last shot, who's going to carry them in the clutch. You're not turning that on?
I'm turning it on maybe to watch who's fighting for this rebound.
You can Schadenfreude watch it if you want. That's fine.
But just you can hate watch the ball goes up and Russ, AD, and LeBron are all jumping in the air to get this rebound. AD wants his rebounding stats. Russ wants
his rebounding.
He wants to get the rebound so he can push it, so he doesn't have to play in the half court. I don't know. It's just such a weird fit to me. I think if there was one point guard that I did not think was a good fit with Bron, it was Westbrook,
or Simmons, maybe.
Yeah, Simmons. But even then, I guess with Simmons, you could run 4 or 5 defense. Pick and rolls or Bron and whatever. But then again, Bron made it work with Rondo, and I didn't think that was going to be a good fit. And they won a championship with Rondo.
Well,
Rondo all of a sudden was making jumpers.
Rondo turned into 3-point playoff Rondo at the end. But let's look at it from the Washington Wizards side. We got our Locked On Wizards podcast, Ed Oliver, and have to pour one out. I could grab one of these drinks and just actually pour one out, but on YouTube I'll just pretend to pour one out for JD. JD Jackson is the biggest Westbrook fan in the world. One of our Locked On Wizards hosts.
He's got a lot of jerseys now.
I was gonna say now he has to go get first of all, he has to get a Lakers jersey now. And second of all, he has to continue covering the Wizards despite his favorite player going to a different team. But on the Wizards side of it, they get, Montrezl Harrell, who picked up that option. And as soon as he picked up that option, we were like, oh, he's getting traded. Absolutely. Kyle Kuzma now, kind of an interesting piece for them. Maybe they'll try to package him for something else. KCP, who is apparently, by all reports, big friends with Russell Westbrook. And then that 22nd pick. So what did you think about this from the Wizards side?
At first, when I saw it, I said, okay, Bill must be getting moved. And then all the reports came out that Bill wants to stay. I've never seen a team that has a guy like Bill, who everyone thinks is on his way out, is going to ask for a trade, try to rebuild around him without him being under contract long term. And I don't know. I just thought that if one goes, then they both go. I thought it was kind of like with Portland. If they trade Dame Lillard, then CJ is coming up after it. So I'm curious to see. And then their point guard as of right now is Aaron Holiday. So unless they're going Isak Bonga, who's been starting at point guard for Germany in the Olympics, I don't know if that's going to do anything for Bradley Beal. I just don't see it's a situation where he says, you know what, I like this roster. Yeah. I'm going to extend my contract now.
Rui Hachimura looking pretty good in the Olympics. He played well against Slovenia the other night.
He did. I fell asleep. I saw the first half, and then I don't know what he did the second half. But he did look good the first half that I saw.
We're locked on Slovenia over here on Locked On Mavericks. We're following them. Die hard. But yeah, on the Wizards side, they get Corey Kispert with that, or they get Isaiah Jackson with that 22nd pick.
No, I thought that goes to the Pacers.
Everything has been turned on its head. Who did they end up? Did they end up with anybody for that?
Aaron Holiday.
Aaron Holiday was in that trade, correct? Yeah. So now they end up with Aaron Holiday instead of a pick, a young player. But Aaron Holiday is an interesting guy. I think he can play in the league, and now he's their starting point guard, right?
That's what maybe it's Isak Bonga. I don't know, because it didn't make sense to me either for both sides. Like for the Pacers, you have to think, okay, Miles Turner must be on his way out because they have Miles Turner. You have Sabonis, who I think his best position is a 5. You have Goga Batadze, who they just drafted a couple years ago, who has he's shown some promise when he's had a chance to play. So that's, in my opinion, 4 centers on the roster. You don't need 4 centers in today's NBA.
And then Isaiah Jackson, a skinny center from Kentucky, playing for Coach Carlisle. Remind you of anything that may have happened in Dallas recently? Raw, young, Nerlens Noel. Hot dogs, anybody?
Oh, I didn't think about that. I was just thinking about, are you saying he's not going to play?
I'm just saying it didn't work before. Yeah. They're going to try it again with Rick Carlisle with that kind of a center. But
I was just thinking from the rookie standpoint. Okay, rookie didn't play.
I was going to say he's probably not going to play anyway. But the Pacers picked a bunch of different rookies that may not play. But, that trade for them was very interesting. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments. Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube if you're not already. Great stuff going up there every single day. Coming up, let's get into our biggest wins and biggest fits so far, the best fits that we've seen from NBA teams that picked these players. We'll get into it with Rafael Barlowe, who knows all these guys. Get into that coming up. All right, Rafael, we are here, Locked On NBA Draft 2021. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see we're still on the set. They let us stay here. Security and us and Chad Ford, I think, are the only ones left in the building. Maybe some people in an edit bay somewhere.
I doubt it. I think it's just us. Security. It's pretty late.
We're security on our own right here.
Yeah.
We got the big board still over there we could go to if we wanted. But
I can't move. My legs are on my back. I've never thought that sitting in a chair can be so tiring.
The Wash, Nick Angstadt and Rafael Barlowe are here.
But you have energy. You're
Well, I just sat in the control room and wrangled people for 6 hours. Let's go with some of the biggest wins in the draft. I think the Houston Rockets, I think they came away with some pretty good talents. I think they all kind of fit together. I think
think so? You think they fit? Christopher,
Josh Christopher and Jalen Green, those guys kind of, I mean, they kind of do the same thing. They're a little redundant, but you got
Porter Jr. So this I saw someone tweet, this is a ball is life lineup. So that's
a little bit of a 2K lineup, but I think that the two bigs they got, Sengun and Garuba. Yep. I think those two guys, they fit together. You could see that long term. And I mean, you're just trying out some of these guys. Like, I mean, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr. I don't think Kevin Porter Jr. and Josh Christopher are like blue chip. Like, we absolutely have to keep these guys. And so you just try them out as flyers and see if they'll work. And then if Jalen Green's your franchise player, then if those guys don't fit around him, maybe they trade him in a little while to get somebody that's fits better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think Kevin Porter Jr., if his intel was a little better, I think he would have been a top 10 pick last year. Or 2 years ago. He had a really strong finish to the end of the season. I think he had a 48-point game or something like that, 50-point game, something like that. Talent-wise, he's great. Christopher, it's almost like the situation that he left at Arizona State where the ball didn't move. He played with guys that dominated the ball. I think he's going to end up in the same situation in Houston. I want to know what they do with Christian Wood.
Yeah.
I mean, they got him on a really good deal. I think as far as like his production, even though he missed some games with an injury, but I thought that he outplayed his contract in the first year, and I'm just curious to see what's their timeline now.
Yeah, that Rocket team all of a sudden becomes interesting. A bunch of young talent there, trying to figure out how it all fits together. Basically, what are some other the biggest wins in the draft? Do you think teams that came away that you're like that team did really good in the draft? They got a really good player here, or they got some good value.
I mean, you can start off with the top. I thought Detroit got a really good player.
Helps to have
Cunningham. The Cavaliers got Evan Mobley. Scotty Barnes to the Raptors was a shock to me. I thought Charlotte had a really good draft. They have the potential to, in 5 years from now, say that they won this draft easily. Atlanta got Jalen Johnson at 20 and Sharif Cooper at 48. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. So I can say that they had a really strong draft also.
Well, you talked about the Hornets. What about James Bouknight? What is he going to do next to LaMelo? That seems like a really interesting now pairing that they can throw in the backcourt.
If they get rid of somebody else that they already have there.
I was going to say, Devontae Graham's up. He's a restricted free agent. Rozier is still there. They
Malik Monk.
Malik Monk's still hanging around somewhere.
Yeah, so I want to see how that works out. I like Bouknight a lot. I didn't think he would fall that far to 11. I thought that he could potentially go 6 or 7. So I think that they got more athletic, and they have another shot creator. So I like what they've done. JT Thor, he was a Twitter favorite. I don't know how productive he's going to be. He wasn't really, really productive at Auburn, but he showed a lot of upside and potential. And that's what the draft is all about. I didn't think that Thor would go ahead of Sharif Cooper, though. So that's probably like one of the biggest shocks. But I thought Charlotte drafted well. And the situation that Charlotte is in, they already have their cornerstone. So now they just need to find the pieces that fit around him. LaMelo Ball is what I'm talking about. So that's kind of half the battle in the draft is getting your cornerstone. And once you get that, then I think everything else becomes a little bit easier.
It'd be nice if that was it, but as a Dallas Mavericks, as a person that covers the Dallas Mavericks, maybe
well, the guys didn't get a chance to play last year.
Maybe not. They haven't figured out how to put pieces around Luka. They got Luka, haven't figured out that. But yeah. So why does a guy like James Bouknight fall then? 'Cause it seems like to me, James Bouknight was a guy about maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago or so. He was a guy that was mocked around like, in the 20s or something. And a bunch of people all of a sudden, I think Bill Simmons even was one of the guys who was like, that's a guy that I really like. That's a guy that's going to go really high. And so when a big name like that all of a sudden brings that up, then a bunch of people start having him mocked higher. I'm not saying it's just all because of Bill Simmons, but all of a sudden he starts getting added higher and higher in mock drafts, and maybe he wasn't ever that high, but people just started falling in love with him. It seemed like the fun pick to throw him pretty high in the draft, the guy that, makes sense for a couple of teams, but even though there's guys that are more talented than him.
Well, if there's anything we learned tonight, that mock drafats mean absolutely nothing.
I feel like we say that every year. Every year we're like, mock drafts don't matter.
It's like your NCAA tournament bracket. You can be done with it by the first 10 picks. I don't know. I had a chance to watch him in Miami maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I thought if there was one thing that he needed to improve on, it was his catch and shoot as far as like three-point shooting. I think he shot like 29% from three. Had to play with the ball in his hands a lot, so I don't think that's the role that he's going to have in Charlotte. But when I did watch him play, or not play, but work out, even though it is an empty gym, the shot looked clean. He was knocking down a high percentage of catch and shoot jumpers. So I'm very curious to see how it translates over, because playing with Melo, he is going to have to catch and shoot some. But I like him. I really like him as a shot creator. I think that he has the potential to be their end of the shot clock guy, the guy that they can, you get in the jam. All right, let's give the ball to Bouknight, clear out, and he can go get us a bucket.
Which is what you would say about Devontae Graham. Terry Rozier sometimes, and LaMelo sometimes, right? Like they have a bunch of guys now that all of a sudden can do that. They just have to figure out the hierarchy now.
Yep.
We're an NBA podcast, so I think we have to contractually talk about the Golden State Warriors at some point. Seems like everybody talks about them. They get Jonathan Kuminga at 7. They get Moses Moody at 14. It seemed like before the draft, a lot of people were talking about they're gonna pick one guy that's a swing for the fences, high upside type pick, and another guy that's a safe pick. Did they do that?
I mean, I guess if you consider Moses Moody the safe pick, I think that he is somewhat safe. I didn't think Kuminga would be available. I thought that they would go safe. I thought they would go Davion Mitchell from Baylor, and then Kispert or Duarte. I thought they were strictly all about let's go ahead and try to get some guys that can come in and contribute and win now. But again, they didn't expect Kuminga to fall at number 7. He was projected to go top 5 in literally almost every mock until about maybe 2 weeks ago, it seems. And then he fell to 7. So that was probably one of the biggest shocks for me also. I don't know. I still feel like we may see a trade maybe on free agent night. I think.
How long have we been saying I think the Warriors might trade, right? It just seems like it's been a year almost that we're like, the Warriors are going to trade these picks and the Minnesota pick and their pick.
They may have to settle for someone less than like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard. I don't know how going to Golden State is a good fit for Kuminga. Like I was talking on the show, if I'm his agent, I'm like, my guy's never going to play. He's going to be in Santa Cruz.
Right.
And I'm, as an agent, you're thinking about that second contract.
Right.
So the Warriors' timeline, I mean, you would expect them to at least be contenders for at least the next 2 years. And so how is Kuminga going to really get a chance to play? So I don't know. I still think that there has to be some type of trade. And I know what they said about Ben Simmons. I don't think he would be like the best fit for the Warriors, but they were saying there won't be a trade tonight. So it could be, a trade around free agency.
Yeah, which is coming on Monday.
And then Summer League is like 5 days after that.
I know these guys are getting drafted. They're going up on stage, and then they're just running to the vans where they're going to go to the airport and get shipped.
Yes, are they going to do their media in Las Vegas?
I guess so. It's all over Zoom now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
But yeah, so coming up, let's get into our power rankings. We have the biggest surprises of the draft. You're not going to want to miss it. Some great stuff coming up from Rafael. But before we do, I got to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. We have like 100 of them on set. We have this one right here. This is the strawberry. They're great. They're delicious. They're good for you. They're healthy. Incredible bar. Thank you to them for sponsoring our live stream. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein in this strawberry Built Bar. They're great. You had a Built Bar for you had a Built Bar.
I had two.
You had two Built Bars
yeah.
to get you through.
Yep.
What was your favorite flavor so far?
I like the salted caramel. I hadn't tried that one. I have been, doubling down on the double chocolate.
Oh, the double chocolate is good. The grasshopper cookie, we got sent a whole box of those, and those are awesome. I'm taking those home for sure. 100% taking those home.
I still want birthday cake.
That one we didn't get sent, but
my birthday just passed. So I was hoping they'd have at least one birthday cake.
At least one with Rafael's name wrapped.
Celebrate my birthday. Come on, Locked On. Next year, I need birthday cake for my birthday.
We'll have to get birthday cake back. If you want a bar yourself, go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next box of Built bars. You can do it mixed. You can do it assorted. You can try a bunch of different flavors. You can get just one flavor if you want. Go there. Promo code LOCKED15. All right, Rafael, let's get into our power rankings. The biggest surprises from the draft. I have them. They're in some kind of an order, 5 to 1. We'll go through this like we do every single week on Fridays on Locked On NBA. The biggest surprises, number 5 for me, Jared Butler falling. Jared Butler fell all the way to what, 30 with the Jazz, and you said that he is.
It wasn't even 30. I was
gonna say it was 40.
40
yeah, because they traded that pick. He fell 40 to the Jazz, and you said it's surprising on this live stream. You said it's surprising for a team to get a player at 40 that's going to crack their rotation. What do you think about Jared Butler?
I think he's going to crack their rotation. I thought he was a first-round pick. I had him mocked to go to the Knicks. I thought he could have helped there. I'm surprised Philly passed him up. I'm surprised Utah passed him up at 30, but they ended up getting him at 40, which saves them a lot of money. They got a first-round talent and a guy that I think is going to come in and contribute right away on a second-round deal. And now it's up to his agent to at least try to get first-round years guaranteed. But that's a win for Utah. But I was shocked. Well, I say this. On one hand, I was shocked, but on the other hand, I'm not, because I knew that some teams was going to hold the medical against him, even though he was cleared by the NBA. So to see him drop on one, talent-wise, yes, I'm shocked. But based off of, that red flag, then I knew there was a chance that he could slip. But I didn't see 40, though.
Yeah, if that's a story, if it's coming out that, he's been cleared by the NBA, that's a little bit of a flag maybe you look at. Number 4, Sharife Cooper. This one maybe should be higher, but Sharife Cooper falling all the way, not even just in the second round, but deep into the second round. What happened to Sharife Cooper? Because it's not like he was Jared Butler where he had that medical red flag. What was the reason for Sharife Cooper falling so far?
I wish I knew the answer. He probably could have made more money in college with the NIL. Because, 48, and I think his father is his agent. And
not doing
I don't think that had anything to do with him falling. But now we're going to see how good his father's negotiation skills are. And I think it's tough if you have an inexperienced agent, negotiating with a general manager, especially when Sharife fell to 48. So that's going to be an interesting battle over the contract. So I want to see what he signs for. But, yeah, I did not see him falling. It's almost to the point where you're like, at that low, you may not want to get drafted.
I was going to say, just go undrafted and then get a longer contract.
And just pick the team that's a good fit for you.
Yeah, that was a super surprise move. But this was a draft full of surprises, right? There was a lot of, I think it went chalk the first 3 picks, and then all of a sudden pick 4 is one that we'll maybe talk about in a little bit. But Josh Primo, number 3 for me of the Spurs. That one was the one that just completely, I think, threw all of us.
This is my number 1.
Your number 1 most surprising
pick. This is my
pick.
number 1. I didn't see anybody had Primo mocked ahead of 15. At one point,
and 15 was high.
15 was high.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And I don't even think that he was a first rounder until after the combine. But, I spent a lot of times looking at mock drafts, and I saw him late first round at the earliest. A lot of early second rounds, but 12 to a lottery pick, and the Spurs have enough wings as is.
Yeah,
They just drafted one last year.
What does he bring to the table? Like, what could they have seen in him? It's like, all right, best case scenario, we take this guy in the lottery. He's going to do what for us?
He's 18.
He's going to grow?
Yeah, he's 18, barely made the legal draft age. I mean, there's some upside there. I think that he can be a shooter. I think that he has the ability to attack closeouts. I mean, if they had Keldon Johnson, who spent the majority of his rookie year in the G League, I wouldn't be surprised at one bit if they're like, look, this is a potential pick. He's young. We're gonna send him to. I want to call him the Austin Toros, and I used to work in the G League here with the Austin Toros, but the Austin Spurs. And then the guy, I can't think of his name right now.
Toros is a much better name.
It definitely
I don't
is.
like the double name for the same, like the G League team and the.
Yeah.
No.
What's the guy? I can't think of his name. It was an international guy, and I guess I'm supposed to know the international guys.
I was going to say, you're the international guy.
Samanic. They drafted him.
Alan Samanic.
No,
Luka Samanic.
Yeah, Samanic.
Yeah.
They drafted him ahead of Keldon Johnson, and he hasn't really had an opportunity to play. I don't think the Spurs are going to be afraid to send Primo to Austin for the whole season.
We were wondering, I mean, going into this offseason, what direction are the Spurs going to go, right? Like, They seem like they have all these kind of young guys that are just – are any of them blue chippers? Is Keldon Johnson the one guy he's on Team USA? Is he the one guy to build around? Like, who's the guy that they build around? Which direction do they go? Do they try to, bring back DeMar DeRozan and then use that a lot of that cap space they have to bring somebody in to win now? But I think with this pick, if they're going to go this young, like the youngest, I mean, they're taking their time with this rebuild.
The pick says so. But for some reason, I still can't see Pop going all in on.
Well, what if Pop's not there anymore? Jeff Garcia, Locked On Spurs, been talking about that for weeks. He's like, well, when is Pop going to keep coming back to this team?
Pop seems like a guy that's going to coach
just forever. He's going to be. Yeah.
He seems like I can't see him leaving San Antonio, going somewhere else. But I see Pop thinking like. I don't know. Maybe he has an ego. I don't know. I've never met Pop, but now you're starting to see all the questions. Well, Pop hasn't done anything.
Oh yeah.
Since Kawhi
Team USA
left.
loses,
Team
like
USA
loses.
So the competitor in Pop probably says, no, I want to show that I can win without Tim Duncan because, like if you have that type of cornerstone, then it covers up a lot of things. And then he was fortunate to have Kawhi right after that. Mm-hmm. So now. Maybe he's going to be motivated to prove that, I can coach. That's just my choice.
That doesn't sound familiar at all to any NFL team in the Northeast at all. That whole spiel you just went on, Bill Belichick, Greg Popovich, who finishes their career first?
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. That's like an impossible question.
Gonna have to wheel those guys off.
Number 2, my most surprising move, Josh Giddey to the OKC Thunder. This one, he was pretty high. I think Rylan Stiles, Locked on Thunder, was just shocked. I screenshotted a picture of him on the Zoom when he initially heard that it was Josh Giddey. I think I broke the news to him because I had Twitter up and he didn't. But
nobody saw this coming.
Josh Giddey, nobody had this. But people were talking about Josh Giddey as a guy that was rising, that people were really high on, that, this is a guy that you should watch in the draft. And why is he a guy that people are high on, and why did the Thunder take him this high?
6'8" and a phenomenal passer. I thought the two best passers in this draft were Sharif Cooper and Josh Giddey, and they both they're both on the two furthest ends of the spectrum as far as this draft.
Going too high and going probably too low.
Yeah, I guess that scrimmage or the game against Nigeria and Vegas must have earned him a lot of money.
Isn't that crazy? Like, you could have one game in front of a bunch of scouts. It's like a high, profile game, and then all of a sudden, like, people get excited about you and draft you. And he made like a couple $1 million? Like,
yeah, but the
just
thing
going
is
higher
that
in the draft.
When you're young, it works. But when you're like Davion Mitchell, they say, "Oh, well, you just had a strong tournament run.
Yeah.
You weren't considered a lottery pick until this strong NCAA tournament." So it's like, if you're young, all you have to do is show a little bit of flash. It's like the less they see of you, the better it helps you. But that didn't work for Sharif Cooper because he only played half a season. So there's really no rhyme or reason.
It's almost like you get like college basketball gets devalued now, right? Like, people look at college basketball and say, we've seen too many of these guys, these Frank Kaminsky's, these Tyler Hansboroughs come in and, dominate in college and then just not show a whole lot in the NBA, so it gets devalued.
But the same thing you can say about like the one and dones. It doesn't have the same conversation because we've seen plenty of guys that were one and dones that were raw and teams selected them on upside and then they didn't pan out. But if you're older and doesn't pan out, it's held against every senior.
It's a crapshoot. Why would anyone stake their career on the NBA draft?
I don't know.
He said looking at Chad Ford out in the lobby, who's made an incredible career on the draft. Last one for me, number 1, Scotty Barnes, my most surprising thing, because it just seemed like Jalen Suggs was the guy. It seemed like he was going to be number 4. I thought we had the top 5 figured out. And Cade Cunningham to Detroit, you had Jalen Green going to the Rockets, you had Evan Mobley going to the Cavs, and then it was going to be Jalen Suggs, and then it was going to be Jonathan Kuminga. And then the Scotty Barnes one, like, that one, and the draft was going to start at 6, and now the draft started at 4. At 4 when they took Scotty Barnes.
Well, if there was one guy who we thought was going to crack the top 5, it would have been Barnes. So.
Which I think Chad Ford, he talked about Scotty Barnes at our lottery live stream that we did. That was the guy. He's like, but watch out for him.
Yeah, and I guess we all thought that the top 5 was the same, and I guess one of the guys that everybody projected in the top 5 fell out. But I didn't see Barnes going to the Raptors. I thought it was Suggs. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, I've done so many podcasts, but I felt like Jalen Suggs and Cade Cunningham were the 2 that you could write in stone that they're going to these teams. I just knew, like, okay, we know Cade is going to the Pistons. 2 and 3 were flip-flopping, but I felt like it was literally a lock that – Jalen Suggs would go to Toronto, considering that, with Kyle Lowry expected to leave, and you thought, okay, well, they're going to draft a point guard. They did. They just must assume that Scotty Barnes is a point
can be
guard.
their point guard.
Yep.
Or they're just tanking even farther, right? They're like, all right, well, we're going for Chet Holmgren in a couple years. Like, There you go. Rafael Barlowe, Barlowe 500 on Twitter. You can go follow him. Follow the Locked On NBA Draft Podcast, Draft Junkies on YouTube in the podcast as well. He's done great stuff for us. The live NBA Draft Show was awesome. It was incredible to have it here in the studio. It was great. I'm Nick Angstadt, Locked On Mavericks. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA. Boom.